My work with people who have been incarcerated and who are presently incarcerated at the Church of Gethsemane is unique. It's not just a prison ministry. We have an intentional congregation of people who were formerly incarcerated and their families. The majority of the members of our congregation have been in prison or jails throughout New York State, and the majority of the leaders of our congregation were formerly incarcerated. We know firsthand that human rights laws have yet to be fully realized in the prisons in the United States. This little booklet, I hope everybody can pick up. I don't know if it's available at the bookstore here, but it's called Human Rights in Prisons, a pocketbook of international human rights standards for prison officials. And it's put out by the United Nations publication, printed at United Nations in Geneva. There is so much that has to be done. And reading this, I was shocked at how much is said in here that should be implemented that is not implemented in our prison system. I'm not even talking about detentions or military prisons. I'm talking about the prisons in the United States of America. I don't know much about prisons throughout the world, but I assume that it's much the same. And what is the biggest stumbling block? It's that we still see our prison system as a punitive system of justice, not a restorative system, not a system of rehabilitation, but a punitive system. And sometimes, when we're faced with the system, we get discouraged, don't we? We all feel, all of us who are involved in activism and who want to change the system get frustrated sometimes because we feel helpless. Well, what do we do? Where do we start? Yes, we want to change the laws, and yes, we want to support international criminal laws, and we want to support changes that will bring more humanity into our prisons. How do we do it? And I guess one of the things that I've asked myself is every person who comes home from prison that I talk to in my congregation, I say, how did you keep your spiritual center? How did you keep that faith and hope in the face of violation of your human rights and the face of disrespect and abuse and this constantly being beaten down and told that you were unworthy, that you were discarded, that you're forgotten by society? How do you survive that? How do you come out whole? How do you keep your dignity and self-worth? And what is it that I hear most? Is that somebody reached out to that individual and said, I care. You are not alone. We have not forgotten you. Whether it was a letter somebody received, whether it was a visit someone received. I'll tell you a story. My colleague Chibuzi Okori and I went up to visit some of our Project Connect members at Attica. And one of the individuals that we wanted to see had been incarcerated for 15 years. And during that time, he had never had a visitor. So when the guard told him there was a visitor downstairs, and they won't tell you who it is, when he was told that there was a visitor in the visiting room, he didn't believe him. He thought he was being pulled out of the population to be beaten, and he kept saying to himself, what did I do? I don't remember doing anything, but I must have done something, because there couldn't possibly be a visitor there. And he almost didn't come. But after thinking about it, he thought, well, what if there is somebody there? What if somebody is there to see me? Who could it be? Well, the only way to find out, I guess, is to go. If I get beaten up, okay, I get beaten up. So we went, and he walked into the visitor's room. He took a look at us. He'd seen our picture on a newsletter. We send newsletters to prisons throughout New York State. He knew us, and he just began to weep. This big, strong guy stood there, uncontrollably weeping, and could not stop. It must have been, 10 minutes, Chibuzi, before we could even talk to him? Kept saying over and over again, I can't believe you're here. I can't believe you're here. I have never had a visitor in the 15 years I've been here. Just being human to one another, caring, the simple act of kindness, love, mercy, and justice. That's what the gospel teachings of my religion are all about, and that's part of all of the major religions. That we care for one another, that we recognize the dignity and the value in each human being, that we love each other. As you said, no matter what the person has done, no matter what we think of the person, we cannot demonize human beings. Each one of us has human worth. One of the things that we can do, a simple little thing that each one of us can do, is to change our language. You know, we talk about us and them. We are them. And the other, we often forget that the system uses language to oppress. And that whenever we use the language that's used by the oppressor, we are also reinforcing oppression. So it's important, no matter what group of people we are talking about, that we want to speak the language that they want to be identified with. Here I'm using they and us and them again, see? Other persons, or all persons, should identify themselves. So we're not going to use words like con and ex-con, right? And inmate and offender, because that just reinforces the words that the system uses. The words that people who have been incarcerated want to hear is formerly incarcerated person or incarcerated person. Let's not depersonalize. Let's remember that we're all human beings. And in my tradition, we say, you are loved by God. God hasn't given up on you. The Church of Gethsemane hasn't given up on you. Don't give up on yourself.